I stood there holding my wife's phone, staring at the screen as the anger inside me went ice cold, like it had locked itself in my veins. What I was reading wasn't confusing or vague, there was no room to explain it away. The messages were intimate, personal, filled with plans and words that didn't belong in a marriage. They were between her and Mason, the man she always referred to as nothing more than her professional partner. One message burned itself into my mind and refused to let go. Can't wait for one more night before you head home. Home. That meant me. That meant the 12 years we'd spent married. I didn't panic. I didn't rush. I carefully took screenshots of every message, every thread, moving slowly and with purpose. My hand stayed steady the entire time, even though inside my chest everything felt like it was tearing itself apart. When I finished, I placed her phone back on the nightstand in the exact position I'd found it, down to the angle. It looked untouched, like nothing had happened at all. She was still in San Francisco and wouldn't be home for another 3 days. 3 full days, plenty of time to take care of what needed to be done. Most guys would have blown up right then. Screaming, throwing things, calling her nonstop and demanding answers. Men like that act on impulse. They lose control. Weak men. I wasn't about to give her the pleasure of watching me unravel. What I had planned was quieter and far more effective. My name is Ethan Parker. Until almost a year ago, I was a fire captain in Denver, well respected and proud of the work I did. I had a career that meant something, a beautiful wife named Isabella who worked as a photographer, and a life that most men would look at and think I had it made. Now I live off the grid near Flathead Lake in Montana, teaching survival skills to tourists and answering to no one but myself. Isabella and I first crossed paths during a warehouse fire downtown. She was there on assignment for the Denver Chronicle, standing way too close to the flames to get the shot she wanted. I grabbed her and pulled her back just seconds before a wall collapsed exactly where she'd been standing. After the fire was out and the smoke finally cleared, she asked for my number. Said it was for a follow-up piece, a human interest angle. 3 months later, we were engaged. For 10 solid years, we were steady. Reliable. Strong. I worked my way up through the fire department, and she built her photography business piece by piece. When our schedules lined up, we traveled. On weekends, we hiked through the Rockies and talked about everything and nothing. We talked about having kids someday. Someday just never showed up. Then, 2 years ago, she landed a contract with National Geographic. This changes everything, Ethan, she told me that night, glowing like she'd just won the lottery. She was right. It changed everything, just not in the way either of us expected. At first, the assignments were manageable. A week in Yellowstone photographing wildlife. 10 days in Alaska shooting glaciers. She'd come home buzzing with energy, fully alive, and we'd reconnect in ways that reminded me why our marriage worked. Then the trips got longer. 2 weeks in Costa Rica. 3 weeks in Kenya following conservation teams. This is just how the job works, she'd say anytime I questioned it. You can't rush the perfect shot. I understood timing better than most. In firefighting, timing is the difference between life and death, knowing when to advance, when to retreat, and when to change the plan entirely. So I adapted. I built routines. I focused on my work and kept myself steady. That's when the San Francisco project came along. 6 months covering urban renewal, which meant weekly trips to the Bay Area. That's also when Mason Reed entered our lives. He's the writer assigned to the series with me, Isabella explained over dinner after her first week back. Used to write for The New Yorker. I noticed the spark in her eyes when she said his name. I saw the faint flush rise in her cheeks. I noticed everything, I just chose not to comment. Observation is a survival skill. Mason says my composition style is groundbreaking, she'd mention casually. Mason thinks this series could win awards. Mason took me to this incredible spot in Chinatown, strictly professional, of course. I'd never been the jealous type. In my line of work, trust isn't optional. When you walk into a burning building, you trust your team completely or you don't walk out at all. I gave that same trust to my marriage. Even when she started taking calls in other rooms. Even when intimacy became scheduled instead of spontaneous. Even when she came home from trips feeling different. That trust finally fractured when her phone lit up at 2 in the morning with a message preview that read, "I could still feel your presence next to me." I lay there beside her, staring at the face I'd woken up next to for 12 years, realizing I didn't actually know the woman sleeping next to me anymore. The next morning, I kissed her goodbye like I always did before a flight. "I love you," she said casually. "Safe travels," I replied, already planning my exit in my head. As soon as her flight status showed departed, I moved with precision. No hesitation. No emotion. I withdrew exactly half of the money from our joint account, not a dollar more, not a dollar less. I packed one duffel bag with only the essentials. I called my fire chief and resigned, blaming it on a personal emergency. I left a short note for my brother Oliver, a former Marine. "Need to disappear for a while. I'm okay. I'll reach out when I can." Then I pointed my truck northwest and drove, with no destination in mind, just away. 11 months will strip a man down to his bones. Living mostly alone. Working with your hands. Letting go of the identity you once wore like armor. When the titles and relationships fall away, you're left with the truth of who you are. I ended up in Kalispell out of necessity after my truck broke down. With limited cash, I took a job at a sporting goods store just to keep moving. Later, I found work at The Lodge, an upscale resort where wealthy tourists paid top dollar for authentic wilderness experiences. Harper, the owner, hired me on the spot after I demonstrated basic survival techniques. "These tech executives will pay $2,000 for a weekend just to learn how to start a fire without matches," she said plainly. "You know what you're doing. You keep to yourself. When can you start?" Harper was attractive, late 30s, sharp, confident, and capable. She flirted occasionally, but she respected the boundaries I made clear from day one. Whoever she was, Harper said once after I declined a dinner invitation, "She really did some damage to you." "Is it that obvious?" I asked. "You've got a look," she replied. "Like someone who survived an explosion and is still checking himself for shrapnel." She didn't press the issue. Some injuries don't respond well to probing. They need time, and time was something I had in abundance. I rebuilt my life around discipline. I was awake before sunrise every day. I worked until my muscles had nothing left to give. I spoke only when necessary. I kept my connections loose and my distance intentional. I grew a beard. Shed the softness the city had carved into me. The daily labor hardened my body and cleared my mind. I started keeping a journal, not to rant or unload emotions, but to sort my thinking. I wrote about anger that stayed cold instead of boiling over. About stepping away with strategy rather than burning everything down. About choosing control over reaction. I kept writing until one truth became clear: absence has power. So I disappeared. No phone calls. No social media. Nothing. I never looked her up, not once. No late-night searches. No curiosity traps. Cutting her off completely was the only path forward. I bought a cheap prepaid phone strictly for emergencies and gave the number to one person, my brother Oliver. He had clear instructions on when and how it could be used. "She's been trying to find you," he told me during one of our monthly check-ins. "She hired a private investigator." "She knows why I left," I said. "She showed up at my place," he continued. Crying. "Said you vanished without a word. Wanted to know if you were even alive." "What did you tell her?" "That you are alive," he said. "And that's all she's entitled to know." Good man. "You thinking about coming back, Ethan?" he asked. "There's nothing left for me there," I replied. What I didn't tell Oliver was that this stripped-down life had given me something I hadn't felt in years: quiet. Real, undisturbed peace. The lodge attracted a strange mix of people. High-powered executives playing outdoorsmen for a weekend. Experienced adventurers who didn't need guidance but respected competence. Word traveled fast. I earned a reputation for being calm, capable, and hard to shake. Some of the women noticed. A few made their interest obvious. I turned every one of them down without explanation. For the first time since meeting Isabella, my attention was fully directed at my own path instead of bending myself around someone else's ambitions. I didn't miss the irony. Sometimes a man has to lose everything before he finally belongs to himself. Winter hit Montana without apology. Tourism dropped off sharply, leaving mostly weekend warriors who overestimated their toughness. My days were spent splitting firewood, maintaining gear, and occasionally guiding ice fishing trips for guests who didn't scare easily. As the daylight shrank, the isolation deepened, but it no longer felt heavy. I'd learned how to carry solitude without letting it crush me. Then she found me. December 18th. I remember the date without hesitation. The day after the lodge's staff holiday party, I was checking in a family from Minnesota when the front door swung open. Freezing air poured into the lobby, and with it walked the last person I ever expected to see again. Isabella stood there, snow melting into her hair. Her face looked thinner, more defined. Her eyes paused when they met mine, like she wasn't sure she had the right man. She held a small suitcase and wore a red wool coat I didn't recognize. Time collapsed. The family in front of me blurred into background noise. My body reacted before my mind could catch up, muscles tightening, bracing for impact. "Room for one," she said quietly once the family stepped aside. No tears. No scene. Just 3 clean, controlled words. I could have refused her. I could have demanded how she tracked me down. I could have told her to leave immediately. Instead, I checked her in with mechanical precision. Entered her details. Ran her card. Handed her the key. "Cabin 8, I said. "Last one down the left path. Breakfast is at 7. My voice stayed even. "Neutral." "Thank you," she replied. Our fingers brushed briefly as she took the key. She hesitated. "You look good, Ethan." I didn't answer. Just nodded toward the cabins. She left without another word. I held it together until I reached the staff bathroom. Then my stomach turned violently, sharp and physical, like my body rejected her presence on instinct. I splashed cold water on my face until the nausea faded. "Harper found me there." "That woman who just checked in," she said directly, "she's your past, isn't she?" I nodded once, drying my hands slowly. "Want me to tell her we're full and send her on her way?" I considered it. "No," I said. "I've been running from this for almost a year. It's time to stop." Harper squeezed my shoulder. "My apartment's upstairs if you need space." Sleep never came that night. I paced my cabin, measuring the distance between my door and cabin 8. Why now? How did she track me down? What could she possibly want after all this time? At 3 in the morning, I walked to the edge of the frozen lake. Moonlight turned the ice into glass. Stars burned sharp in the winter sky. I stayed there until the cold stripped everything down to clarity. By sunrise, I had my answer. I'd listen. I'd say what needed to be said. Then I'd move forward, closure or not. I'd rebuilt my life once. I could do it again. Isabella was already in the dining room when I came in to prep the morning coffee. The room was empty. She sat alone, both hands wrapped around a mug of tea, looking familiar and distant at the same time. "You found me," I said, keeping my movements deliberate, staying behind the counter like it was a physical barrier. "It took longer than I expected," she replied, studying me openly. "You disappeared completely." She tilted her head slightly. "The beard suits you." "Why are you here, Isabella?" I asked. No warm-up. No small talk. She took a slow breath. "Not to ask for forgiveness. Not to try to win you back. You deserved better than that." What I deserved, I said evenly, was a wife who didn't cheat. She flinched, but she didn't look away. Yes, she said. You did. The absence of excuses caught me off guard. I'm here because you vanished, she continued. Because I came home to an empty house. For weeks, I honestly thought you were dead. Then Oliver finally told me you were alive, nothing more, no explanation. You know exactly why I left, I said. I do now, she answered. I didn't back then. I let out a dry, humorless laugh. Convenient, wasn't it? I saw everything, I said. The texts. The pictures. Every single thing. She closed her eyes for a moment. I remember thinking that morning something felt off. My phone had been moved. But when you said goodbye, you acted like nothing was wrong. She shook her head. I didn't realize until I got back from San Francisco and found you gone. Early rising guests were starting to trickle into the dining room, so I lowered my voice. We're not doing this here. I'm working until 3. Cabin 14 is empty for maintenance, meet me there if you actually want to talk. She nodded. I spent the morning in the woodshed, swinging an axe with deliberate force until my arms ached and my muscles burned. The pain felt good, needed even. Cabin 14 smelled of pine cleaner and fresh paint. I built a fire just to have something to keep my hands busy. Isabella arrived right at 3. She slipped into jeans and a thick sweater, her hair pulled back into a simple ponytail, the same way she used to wear it before magazine spreads started reshaping her image. How did you find me? I asked the moment she sat down. Does it matter? Humor me, I said, my tone leaving no room for argument. She exhaled slowly. Your credit card, she said. There was a single gas charge in Missoula last January. I didn't respond. By the time the investigator traced it, the trail had gone cold. Then Oliver mentioned you were somewhere near Flathead. I'd been combing the area for months, different towns, different motels, showing your photo. A waitress in Kalispell recognized you, I nodded, mentally noting the slip-up. A security gap. If I needed to vanish again, I could do it within hours. Your turn, she said. Why leave like that, Ethan? Why not confront me? I stared into the fire, watching the flames curl and twist around the logs. What would confrontation have done? I finally asked. You would have lied. Just like you'd been lying for months. She stayed quiet. You would have downplayed it. Or found a way to pin some of it on me. Maybe promised it would never happen again. I looked at her directly. But it wasn't a mistake, was it? It was a choice. One you made over and over. She didn't deny it. You're right, she said softly. It wasn't just once. How long? I asked. 4 months. The number hit me like a punch to the chest. 4 months of lies. She came home as usual, but her mind wasn't there. Did you love him? I asked before I could stop myself. I thought I did, she admitted. I convinced myself it meant something, that it wasn't just betrayal. That story made it easier to live with. And now? Now I know it wasn't love, she said. It wasn't special. It was selfish and destructive. She leaned forward. I'm not here to get you back, Ethan. I made a short, dismissive sound. Spare me the victim speech, Isabella. It's not victimhood, she said, her voice firming. It's the truth. She held my gaze. Mason dumped me 2 weeks after you disappeared. Said things were too complicated. I didn't react. The magazine killed our project when rumors started circulating. Apparently, sleeping with your writing partner violates professional ethics. She laughed, sharp and brittle. I lost 3 more contracts after that. Her voice dropped. I had to sell the house. Couldn't afford it on my own. Spent months in therapy trying to understand why I destroyed everything good in my life. Am I supposed to feel sorry for you? I asked, a quiet, uncomfortable part of me feeling a small sense of vindication at her collapse. No, she said. You're supposed to understand that your disappearance was the strongest response anyone has ever given me. You didn't scream. You didn't threaten. You didn't chase him. You just removed yourself. Left me alone with exactly who I'd become. The fire crackled between us. Outside, snow started falling, thick flakes drifting past the window. I'm not the man who left Denver, I said finally. That guy died the night I read those messages. I know, she said softly. I'm not the same either. She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. I wrote everything down, she said. Things I couldn't say out loud. What happened with Mason? What came after? She set it on the table. Read it. Or burn it. Your choice. I'm staying 3 days, then I leave. And if you never want to see me again, you won't. She stood, paused briefly. For what it's worth, Ethan, and I know it doesn't mean much now. I've never regretted anything more in my life. After she left, I sat there for hours, watching shadows move across the cabin floor. Eventually, I picked up the envelope and slipped it, unopened, into my jacket pocket. Some truths need the right moment. The next day, I avoided the main lodge and led an all-day snowshoeing trip for a group of corporate lawyers. The physical effort and responsibility of keeping them safe gave me a little distance from the emotional fallout Isabella had stirred up. When I got back, Harper was waiting with a thermos. She came looking for you, Harper said, handing me a cup of coffee spiked with whiskey. I told her you were out with clients. Thanks. Harper studied me over her mug. She's attractive. Looks expensive, I said. She used to be different. People change, Harper replied. Not always for the better. She studied me a moment. You know what they say about forest fires? I waited. Sometimes they're necessary. Clear out the dead growth so something new can take root. Your way of saying this mess might be good for me? She shrugged. Just saying destruction isn't always pointless. That night, alone in my cabin, I finally opened Isabella's letter. 8 pages. Her handwriting, once intimate, now felt foreign. Like hearing from someone I used to know. She laid everything out without excuses: how the affair started after a late shoot, how Mason made her feel seen in ways she hadn't realized she was missing. Excitement had twisted into dependence. She had split her life in two, convinced she could keep both parts intact without me ever finding out. She thought she could balance 2 worlds, and for a while, it seemed possible. Until it all came crashing down. Mason walked away the moment things got messy. Then came the professional fallout. Her parents' disappointment. The slow, crushing awareness that she had traded something real for a fantasy. The last lines hit me hardest. I don't expect your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But you should know your silence was more powerful than any anger could have been. She had left herself no escape. No villain, no confrontation. Just her choices staring back at her in a quiet, empty house. And it had broken her in all the ways she needed to be broken. I hope you find happiness again one day. You deserve it more than anyone I've ever known. I read the letter 3 times, letting each word settle into my bones. Then I went outside and split logs under the cold moonlight until every muscle in my arms burned and begged me to stop. The next morning, I found her sitting alone on the back deck, shoulders hunched beneath a borrowed parka that swallowed her frame. Her eyes were fixed on the frozen lake. I didn't say anything, I just pulled the chair beside her. I read your letter, I said after a long pause. She nodded but didn't look at me. And, she asked. And nothing, I replied. It's just what it is. A small, almost shy smile touched her lips. You always were painfully direct, I said. Why come all this way? Why not call? She turned her head slowly. Would you have answered? No. Then there's your answer. She pulled the parka tighter around her. I needed to see you. With my own eyes. To know you were actually okay. I'm not, I admitted. But I'm getting there. She studied me for a moment. You seem steadier. More grounded. When you lose everything, I said, life boils down to the basics. A gust of wind whipped snow across the deck. She shivered. You should go inside, I told her. In a minute, she said. I spotted my journal on the desk when I dropped off the letter. Are you writing again? She asked. The question caught me off guard. I had written stories early on, mostly for myself. That habit had vanished under the weight of responsibilities and promotions. Just sorting thoughts, I said. Nothing creative. You should start again, she said quietly. You were good. There are a lot of things I should start again, I said, standing. But some chapters don't get reopened. Her face fell slightly. She understood. Fair enough. As I turned to leave, she spoke again. Oliver misses you. Won't admit it, but he does. And he knows how to reach me. He says the same about you, I said. Maybe, in spring. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't even close. But it was a crack, a small opening in the wall I had built around myself. That night, I dreamed of fire, not wild, uncontrolled blazes like the ones I'd fought, but a slow, purposeful burn. Necessary. Cleansing. I woke with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. Her last day came with a storm. A full-on blizzard. Around noon, the lodge lost power. Backup generators kept the essentials running, but all guests were instructed to stay in their cabins, stocked with fireplaces and emergency supplies. I was helping Harper hand out extra blankets when I noticed her absence. Her car was in the lot, half buried in fresh snow. She went for a walk early, one of the housekeepers said. Wanted to see the North Trail before leaving. The North Trail. 5 miles of dense forest. Beautiful on a clear day. Deadly in a storm. How long ago? I asked, already grabbing my gear. 4, maybe 5 hours. Harper's eyes widened. You're not going out in that weather. I have to, I said. She doesn't know these woods like I do. Ethan, visibility's gone. Temperatures are dropping. You could die. Both of you. I'll take the emergency radio and GPS, I said, already layering up. Mark coordinates every quarter mile. If I'm not back in 3 hours, call search and rescue. Harper didn't argue. She packed silently, efficiently. Grimly. She still matters to you, she said softly as I checked the radio. She was my wife for 12 years, I said. End of discussion. Be careful, she said, tugging my arm. That hero instinct of yours will get you killed one day. I nodded. Calculated risk. I knew these woods. The storm hit full force the moment I stepped outside. Wind-driven snow burned my exposed skin. Visibility dropped to maybe 10 feet. I lowered my goggles and fought forward, knee-deep in drifts. On a clear day, I could have covered the trail in under 2 hours. In this storm, it took 45 minutes just to reach the first mile marker. I called her name, over and over. The wind swallowed it each time. 2 miles in, the first sign, a red scarf tangled in a branch. Focus sharpened. She was close. Likely disoriented. Possibly hypothermic. Isabella. I shouted again. Silence. Another half-mile, and footprints appeared veering off the trail. Classic behavior for someone lost, searching for shelter. They led to a cluster of boulders forming a partial windbreak. There she was, pressed against the rocks. Snow clung to her coat. Pale skin. Blue-tinged lips. Awake, but deep in hypothermia, trembling uncontrollably. Amande, she stammered. How did you find me? Tracking, I said, already unfolding a thermal blanket and wrapping her in it. Can you stand? She tried and collapsed. Can't feel my feet, she whispered. That's fine, I said. I've got you. I lifted her, pressing her against my chest. She was lighter than I remembered. Keep talking, I ordered. Stay awake. So stupid, she muttered. Thought I'd be back before the storm. Less self-criticism, I said. More staying awake. The way back was brutal. Every step a fight against wind, snow, and exhaustion. My muscles screamed carrying her through deepening drifts. Why'd you come for me? She asked after what felt like hours. Could have just let me disappear too. That's not who I am, I said, adjusting my grip. Never was. That's why I loved you, she whispered. Still do. I said nothing. I focused on one thing, getting us back. Direction. Survival. When the lodge lights finally pierced the swirling white of the storm, relief slammed into me, nearly knocking me to my knees. Harper and 2 staff members appeared out of the snow, grabbing Isabella from my arms and hustling her inside. I froze at the doorway, suddenly aware of how close I'd come to my own limits, watching them peel away her drenched layers and wrap her in warm blankets by the fire. Her eyes found mine across the room, grateful, shaken, weighted with all the words we'd never spoken. I stepped away, needing distance. I had to let my brain catch up with what my instincts had done, risking everything for her without hesitation. Later, Harper found me in the kitchen, still coated in snow and mud, sipping coffee methodically, as if that could steady me. She's going to be okay, she said. No frostbite. Mild hypothermia. Doctor says she got lucky. Good, I muttered. Harper gave me a long look. That was either incredibly brave or recklessly stupid. Probably both, I said, shrugging. I knew the woods. I had the gear. I wasn't reckless. That's not what I meant, she said flatly. And you know it. She studied me like she was trying to see through my chest. You still care about her. It's complicated, I said. Always is, she said, squeezing my shoulder as she passed. She's asking for you. Room 3. Main lodge. Tonight. After she left, I stayed put, staring at nothing, plotting. Outside, the storm hammered the lodge, echoing the chaos I couldn't silence inside. Eventually, I walked to room 3 and knocked once, controlled, firm. Come in, Isabella's voice called. Stronger now. She was propped against pillows, flushed with warmth again, wrapped in blankets. And 4 hung beside her bed, steady and rhythmic. Thank you, she said simply as I Saturday. I could have lost you out there, I said. What were you thinking? I wasn't, she admitted, voice small. I wanted one last look at your refuge, the place I couldn't let go of yet. The doctor had forbidden travel for 2 days. I nodded once. Logical. Sensible. Then she paused. Ethan, out there, when you found me. I said nothing. You were hypothermic, I said finally. Altered mental state. That doesn't make it untrue, she said, holding my gaze. I still love you. I never stopped. That's something you'll carry, I said evenly. Not me. I stood, needing space before emotion could take the wheel. You should rest, I said. Wait, she called. There's something else. Hand on the knob, I stopped. Mason contacted me last month, she said. After his new relationship collapsed, he wanted to reconnect. Her voice hardened. I told him exactly where to go. Told him everything I lost because of us. She shook her head. He laughed. Said I was being dramatic. I looked at her, really looked. Quiet fire in her eyes. That's when I knew I had to find you, she continued. Not to get you back, I know that's impossible, but to tell you, you were right. Leaving the way you did, it was the only way I could understand the scale of what I destroyed. Silence fell. Thank you for telling me, I said finally. I'm not asking for another chance, she said. I don't deserve one. I just needed you to know, at least one of us finally understands the cost. I nodded and left, closing the door slowly, deliberately. The storm raged for 2 more days. Everyone stayed confined inside. I focused on the logistics, keeping the lodge running, making everything measurable and concrete. When I saw her, it was only at meals. Polite nods. Controlled glances. History acknowledged without opening it again. Finally, when the roads cleared, I found her in the lobby. Suitcase packed, settling her bill with Harper. "Your car's been dug out," I said. "Tires should be fine, but take the mountain passes slow. Ice is still heavy." "I will." She paused. "So, this is goodbye." "I guess it is," I said. Harper excused herself quietly. "What will you do now?" I asked. "Back to Denver," she said. "Smaller assignments. Not National Geographic, but honest work." She adjusted a new scarf, the red one she lost in the forest. "And you?" "I'm staying," I said. "For now. This place works for me." She nodded, studying my face, memorizing. "You know where to find me if you ever want to talk." No pressure. "I know." We stood there, 12 years compressed into seconds. "I have something for you," I said, reaching into my pocket. I handed her a small, worn notebook. "My first journal," I said. She looked startled. "Ethan." "I can't." "I want you to have it," I said. "Maybe it'll help you understand everything." Her hands trembled as she took it. "Thank you." On impulse, she leaned in, brief, careful, a gesture neither fully embraced nor rejected. "Be happy," she whispered. "That's all I want for you now." I watched from the steps as she drove away, snow spiraling behind her, taillights disappearing around the curve. Harper joined me, fogging breath in the cold air. "You okay?" "Getting there," I admitted. "She might come back someday," she said. "Maybe," I replied, turning toward the lodge. "But I won't be waiting." That night, I started a new journal. First entry. Today, I buried the past. Not with forgiveness, I'm not there yet, but with clarity. We were flawed, differently. Now we rebuild, separately. That has to be enough. 2 weeks later, my phone rang. Unknown number. Oliver's voice came, hesitant. "Ethan, you sitting down?" My body tightened. "What happened?" "It's Isabella. Head-on collision. Drunk driver. Outside Denver. I-25. The room tilted. "She's alive," he said quickly. "Critical condition. Multiple surgeries. They don't know yet." "Who else knows where I am?" I asked. "I called her sister, Ava. She asked for your number. Isabella's been asking for you." I closed my eyes. Memories assaulted me, her laugh in the kitchen, sleeping beside me, walking away from the lodge. "Give Ava my number," I said. "Are you coming back?" Oliver asked. "I don't know," I muttered, already scanning flights from Kalispell to Denver. An hour later, Ava called. Her voice cracked, raw with fear. "Ethan, it's Ava. I don't know if you'll come, but she keeps asking for you." Her words broke. "The doctors, they say we should prepare for the worst." "Which hospital?" "Denver Memorial. ICU. 4th floor." I promised I'd decide. That night, I paced the length of my cabin, trapped between two impulses. One side of me wanted to stay distant, guarding the life I had painstakingly rebuilt. The other knew that without closure, Isabella would linger, a shadow I could never outrun. By morning, the decision had crystallized. I booked a flight. Faster, cleaner. I left Harper a note. Going to Denver. Personal matter. Back in 3 days. The plane ride gave me time to brace myself. I told myself it would be brief. See her. Say what needed saying. Return to Montana untouched by old emotions. Clean. Controlled. Final. Ava met me at the hospital doors. Her face was hollow, exhausted. Without hesitation, she pulled me into an embrace, and I was surprised by how much comfort it gave me. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. "How is she?" My voice was steady. Ava faltered. "Critical. Internal bleeding. Collapsed lung. Spinal injuries. 2 surgeries already. She's conscious, but heavily medicated. She might not even recognize you." I nodded, bracing myself, and followed her up to the ICU. The door slid open, and my chest tightened. The woman in the bed barely resembled the Isabella the first remembered. Bruises mottled her face, one eye swollen shut. Tubes and wires clung to her, every beep a reminder of how fragile life had become. I approached slowly and took the chair beside her. One hand lay free on the sheets, the other trapped in a cast. After a moment, I placed my fingers lightly against hers. Her eye fluttered open. Recognition came slowly through the haze of sedation. "Ethan?" Her voice was a fragile whisper. "You came." "I came," I said simply. "I knew I would." A faint smile touched her lips. I leaned closer, keeping my voice low. "I can't stay long, Isabella. I've built a new life." "I know," she murmured, weakly curling her fingers around mine. "I'm just glad I got to see you one more time." I stayed quietly that afternoon, offering presents without letting myself sink into old emotions. When evening rounds arrived, I slipped out. "I need to talk to you," I told Ava in the waiting area. "Practical matters." She blinked but nodded. "I'm heading back to Montana tomorrow," I said plainly. "I can't be part of this long term." "But she needs you," Ava pressed. "The doctors say loved ones help recovery," she added. "I'm not her loved one anymore," I said evenly. That ended when she chose Mason. Ava's eyes flared. "So you're just leaving her, like this? When she could die?" "I'm not responsible for her survival," I replied. "I came to say goodbye properly. That's all I can do." "She still loves you," she said softly. "That's unfortunate for her," I said. Ava stared at me as though I had become someone unrecognizable. "You've changed," she said. "Yes," I admitted. "For the better." Back in Isabella's room, she was awake, watching the door. "You're leaving," she said immediately. "Tomorrow morning," I said. She nodded, wincing. "I understand," she whispered. "Do you?" I asked, sitting down. "You've rebuilt your life." "I don't belong in it," she said. "I wouldn't want you to stay out of pity." "Good," I said. "Because I wouldn't." Her eye studied my face. "You're different now." "Harder." "I had to be," I said. "That's how I survived." "I'm sorry, Ethan. For everything." "I know," I said. "But it doesn't change anything." She closed her eye briefly, then opened it. "Did you read my journal? The one I left at your cabin?" "Not yet." "Please do," she said. "Not to excuse myself, just to explain." "I will. Eventually." She seemed satisfied. Then. "The night you left, you took my grandfather's watch. Do you still have it?" "Yes." "Why?" "He'd be proud of you." The words hit harder than I expected. That watch had been a quiet anchor in my life, the last thing my grandfather ever gave me. "I have something for you," Isabella said, weakly gesturing to the bedside cabinet. Top drawer. Inside was a manila envelope with my name on it. "Open it later," she said. "When you're home." I slipped it into my jacket pocket. "I should go," I said. "Let you rest." "Will I see you before you leave?" she asked. "No. This is goodbye." A single tear slid down her cheek. "I understand. Thank you for coming." I looked at her, at what remained of the woman I had loved beyond reason. Take care of yourself, Isabella. You too, Ethan, she whispered. Be happy. You deserve it. I left without glancing back, past Ava's accusing stare. Later, in my hotel room, curiosity won. I opened the envelope. Inside, legal papers, property transfer for a small cabin on 10 acres near Estes Park. She had bought it 6 months ago and signed it over to me. A note clipped to the front. This was meant to be a peace offering, a place to write, to escape. Now it's yours. No conditions. Whether you ever speak to me again or not. The realtor has the keys. I stared at the papers, unsure what I was supposed to feel: gratitude, guilt, or the weight of responsibility. Part of me realized that keeping them meant letting Isabella back into my life, even if only indirectly. Another part of me couldn't ignore the obvious reality: that cabin wasn't just a gesture or a memory, it was security. A quiet place to disappear when the noise got too loud. A fallback. Practical advantages I'd be foolish to dismiss. After sitting with the idea for a while, I chose not to make a final decision yet. I kept the papers. I didn't owe anyone an answer, least of all myself. I could keep the cabin. I could sell it later. Either way, the call would be mine and no one else's. My return flight to Montana left just after sunrise. I didn't call Ava. I didn't go back to the hospital. Some endings are better left untouched. No revisits. No last looks. No reopening doors that took real effort to close. Harper was waiting at Kalispell Airport, leaning against her truck like she'd always been part of the landscape. Welcome back, she said. Everything handled? Yeah, I answered, tossing my duffel into the truck bed, for good this time. She studied me before turning the key. You look different, she said. Lighter. I made a few decisions that needed making. About your axe, she asked. About my future. She nodded, catching the distinction immediately. Good. Then she added, casual but intentional, there's an instructor position opening up at the Mountain Rescue Training Center near Whitefish. The director's an old friend. Says you'd be a strong fit. I ran it through my head. Better pay. Growth. Work that matched what I actually knew. That sounds worth talking about. They want to fill it next month, she said, glancing over. If you're planning on sticking around. I am. She smiled, then really smiled, the first unguarded one since Isabella had shown up. Glad to hear it. I'd hate to lose my best survival instructor. Is that all you'd hate to lose? I asked, surprising myself. Her eyebrows rose, then she smoothed it over. Depends what's being offered. Dinner, I said. Tonight. Just us. She pretended to think, but the color creeping into her cheeks gave her away. I think that can be arranged. As we drove back toward the lodge through the snow-packed valley, something unfamiliar settled in. Not nostalgia. Not regret. Something else entirely. Possibility. Not a return to what had been, but the chance to build something new, on steadier ground. 2 weeks later, a short message came in from Ava. Isabella's out of critical condition. Long recovery ahead, but the doctors are cautiously optimistic. Thought you should know. I read it once. Then I deleted it. No reply. That chapter was closed. That same day, I accepted the instructor position and signed the paperwork finalizing ownership of the Estes Park cabin, not as a symbol, not as a memory, but as an asset. Something useful. Something I could keep or walk away from on my own terms. That evening, Harper and I hiked up to a ridge overlooking Flathead Lake. The frozen surface caught the sunset in streaks of fire and rust. Hard to beat that view, she said, standing close enough that our shoulders touched. New perspective, I replied, and we both knew I wasn't talking about the lake. She turned toward me, open but careful. Is this really what you want, Ethan? No ghosts trailing behind you? I considered it honestly. I've faced them, I said. Made peace with what's behind me. I'm ready for what's next. And what's that? I gestured toward the wilderness stretching endlessly in front of us. This. The life I chose, not the one I lost. She smiled, understanding without needing more. I can work with that. As the last light slipped from the sky, the weight of my old life finally fell away. I'd vanished once because I had no other choice. This time, I was stepping forward on purpose, clearer, steadier, and fully my own. It was enough. More than enough.